My name is Dan Purcell. I'm an entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Velocity Webworks, and I'm an outlier.
Welcome to Outlier on Air with Ever Gonzalez, the show where we interview the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. Learn how grit, failure, and success are all a part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Dan Purcell. He is the founder of Velocity Webworks. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ever. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. We've known each other personally for the last few years. We've kind of live in the same city. We've gone to the same events. I'm a big fan of what you're doing, what you've done, and then now what you're going to be doing in the future here as well. But before we get into who you are, what you're working on, tell us where you're calling us from right now.
I'm calling from St. George. St. George, Utah.
So St. George, Utah, Southern Utah. What's my hometown right now for 10 years? I'm originally from Southern California, but now I've made St. George my home. What's the entrepreneurial vibe here in Southern Utah? So the startup scene, the business scene, for those that are not in the area.
I think Southern Utah is a lot like the rest of Utah. It's a very strong entrepreneurial community. As I look back here in St. George, look at our roots as a community, it comes from just settlers that came here and had a lot of grit to really stick through the hard times and develop something amazing out of something that was nothing there before. And I think that culture exists here in our town. And as far as the community goes, there's a pretty good tech scene. We have a really tight-knit tech community here called Dixie Tech. Dixie is a nickname for our town because back in during the Civil War, Utah wasn't involved in the Civil War, but grew cotton here to supply cotton, and so they nicknamed the area Dixie. So we have a Dixie Tech community.
And so this community, right? It's compared to most other cities, Salt Lake, LA, Vegas, those type of things. It's still a small town. But like you mentioned, it's strong, I believe, in its entrepreneurial spirit and drive. Are there advantages, and I'm assuming there are disadvantages of being a founder, running your own company here? What are they, in your opinion?
The biggest advantage for me is it's a great place to live. A lot of people like to live here and want to move here because it's a small town. You can drive anywhere, and you're there in 5 or 10 minutes. You don't have to deal with traffic or pollution or things like that. As far as a disadvantage, if your business relies a lot on the local market, you have a really small market to work with, and that's been a disadvantage in the past.
Now you're obviously the founder of your company. You run your own company. When we've asked others that are out of this area what some of the disadvantages are, that is one of them. Another one is talent, right? Finding the right type of talent for your company. Do you see that in what you're doing?
I've never struggled too much on finding the right talent, and I consider myself really lucky there. That being said, about a third, maybe almost a half of those that I've employed that I'd say were really talented moved here. Mm-hmm. Whether they moved here to take my job or to take another job and then join my company. So I've been really lucky to attract really good talent to do what I need done.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad that you're on the show. This has been a long time coming. You have had a busy year and a half, and we're going to kind of get into the nitty gritty, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly of your journey this last year and a half. But before we do that, let's talk about Velocity Webworks, right? What is it that you do? Tell us about the company.
Sure. I started the company 11 years ago. I started as a website hosting company. I called my friends up that I knew had websites, and I convinced them to switch to my company for hosting. I didn't tell them, though, that I was hosting their sites off of a little PC in my basement, off of a DSL connection.
Oh, nice.
But Yeah, so I started hosting sites, and as I hosted sites, they would say, "Hey, while you're hosting my site, I need these changes done. Can you do that for me?" And I have a background in computer science, and I enjoy web development, so I'd go in and make the changes for them. And I like pleasing people, so they'd be pretty happy. And then next thing I know, they're referring their friends to me to host their friends' sites. So early on, I had a little hosting business growing out of my basement, but quickly morphed into a web development business.
With a specific niche, right? What was that niche overall?
Sure. One of my early clients was my father's company. While I was in college, he started a thread company where he would manufacture thread in Japan and China and import it with his own brand and sell it worldwide. And his business became really popular. And in that same sewing and quilting industry, others would he would interact with others, and through the conversations, people would find out that I do web development, and that was my first step into that niche. And over time, we built up a business. We called it Websites for Quilters. We developed websites for sewers, quilters, a lot of retail quilt stores, fabric manufacturers, quilt guilds. These are like clubs that get together and once a month to do quilting education. A lot in the industry. There's celebrities. We did a lot of websites for the celebrities in the quilting industry, and
Right? Who thinks of that stuff? Right? I mean,
don't
you've
know.
made a career out of this quilting niche,
Mitch.
and yet nobody, like at least nobody that I run with, I think, ever thinks about this type of stuff. But yet here you are, and at your largest or at the peak, how many employees did you have? How big was your team?
At the peak, I had 32 employees.
That's a good sized company.
Yeah, we had over 800 clients worldwide. We had a client in every state except Delaware. We had a client in all the provinces in Canada and Australia, all the states in Australia. England, we had clients in Dubai and Brazil, Mexico. We had a pretty good operation going.
And here you were running this operation for quite a while. You mentioned at the peak you had a quite a big group doing well. I've known you for, like I mentioned at the top of the show, for a while now, and when we see each other and I talk to you, you're obviously the founder. You were running the show there, but you didn't strike me as the life of the party, right? The guy that was on top of the mountain rallying the troops. Although I'm sure you were doing that, just not in a very outwardly outspoken way. You're more quiet. You're more reserved. In your
More introverted. Yeah.
introverted in your style,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah, I
remember
guess
asking
so.
you specifically if that was you kind of running your own team like that, if that was good or bad, or would you rather be doing something else? And what was your response?
Good question. So I went to college and I studied computer science, and I graduated, with almost straight A's. And I focused heavy on becoming a great programmer until the entrepreneurial bug bit me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized, oh shoot, I would have been better off had I took a lot of business classes in college instead.
And
so,
go ahead.
so yeah, rallying the troops is something I learned how to do. I guess it didn't come naturally for me, but I really like who I work with, and I trust my team. And I also got really lucky and was able to surround myself with very talented people, and we could align on the same purpose. And I guess that's the mission helped carry things through
So
to rally
that
the team.
you mentioned that didn't come naturally to you. I'm assuming that maybe you struggled with it for the first little while. Is that still something that you have to kind of put extra time and effort into it, or have you kind of eased into this role of being able to, again, rally the troops and interact with them a little bit better and just kind of put the vision in place and running with it?
I think I'm more eased into it by
Yeah,
now.
good. Now you actually have had a busy year, right? Velocity Webworks was doing great. at the peak. You mentioned over 30 employees, and then you decided to do something a little bit different. Tell us what you did and why you decided to do that a year ago.
Oh, great. So a year ago, another tech company here in St. George had moved here from Salt Lake, and they moved to St. George because they loved the area, loved the good weather that we have. And that other company had a lot of success. They are in the international e-commerce space and signed a big contract with UPS, the shipping carrier. And this is going to propel them way up to the next level. And that also meant they needed to hire a lot of programmers, graphic designers, people that understood marketing, and sales staff and project management and so on. And recruiting in St. George is a challenge, like you mentioned before, because it's a small town. So we went to lunch and they asked all sorts of questions about how do you build a company, how do you recruit, how do you find talent, and so on. And through that conversation, they asked if I ever heard of the term acqui-hire, and I had. And they asked if I was interested. And I told them I'd consider it and would explore the idea. And
so up until that point, had this even crossed your mind about you either selling the company or doing something else, or was it just business as usual up until that point for you?
Never considered selling the company because who would buy a web development company that does websites for quilters?
Nice.
That's like the most unexciting business in the world. So I never imagined anyone wanting to buy it. But they needed a team that knew web, that knew e-commerce, that already had the management structure in place, that are used to working together, and they needed it fast. So we were a perfect candidate for what they needed. And frankly, I was a little burnt out, and I was ready to try something new.
What did that process take? So when you had that lunch meeting to the time where you showed up at their place ready to work, what was that time frame?
Let's see, that was 2 months. It took 2 months.
That's quick.
Yeah, it went really fast.
And so your mindset going into work the first day, it basically not being your company anymore. Right now you're an employee. What was that like?
It was like at that point, what was going through my head is I want to be a star employee. I've been surrounded by great employees before, and I wanted to be that star employee for the new company. And I would come up with ways the company could save money. I would come up with ideas how we can improve our processes, and I wanted to be really proactive and help that company forward. And that's the attitude I had going into it.
You know, a lot of our listeners, right? They're type A personalities. A lot of alphas. There are a lot of number ones, right? That they want to run their own show, do their own thing. Very few of us, I think, would say, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to scale back or go and get another job or those type of things. For a lot of us, it would be very difficult. But for you, it was okay, right?
I wouldn't say it was easy. I guess every entrepreneur at one time or rather, when things aren't going so well, they dream about, maybe I just get a job at McDonald's or that janitor job sounds really good right now.
It won't keep me up in that at least, right?
Right, exactly. Like at this point, it's like, maybe selling would be fun. It'd be fun to just step back and to be more of an employee instead of employer and see how I do in that situation. Because except for a brief job out of college, I've never really been an employee before, and I thought it'd be a good experience. And I liked the company. I was still working with the same people I worked with every day, so it wasn't like I moved to a new job. It's like my job changed, my role changed, but I'm still surrounded by the same team. So it wasn't like
they brought on most of your team, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so this is a little over a year ago when this happened, right? So now lead us into the first few months, then towards the end, what was it like, and then what ended up happening where you're back at Velocity WebWorks?
Okay, sure. One important detail through this transition was because this company would be acquiring my company to get to our developers and to our resources, we wouldn't be able to take care of our 800 clients anymore. So I found new homes for them. A competitor in the same quilting industry took the majority of them, and another business in town took the rest, our non-quilting clients, as we call them. And I have a non-compete in place, so I'm with both companies. Because I'm selling the client base, I'm going to go work for this other company now. And I really enjoyed my time working at the company. I got to learn a lot of new technology, got to work with some great people, and I guess you can say the company had either had premature scaling or they just ran out of money, and it got to the point where they couldn't keep such a big staff anymore, and they had to scale back.
So overall, you were there 11 months. In what month did you start to see kind of the writing on the wall, or when they sat you down and said, "Hey, this is probably not going to work out"? When was that?
It was after 11 months. It was a surprise for me.
Okay, wow.
Because
so that transition back was fast then too.
Yeah, the CEO took me to lunch on a Friday and told me that, "Hey Dan, we can't pay you for your business," because the arrangement was such that there was a small percentage down and the balance was due at a later time. "I can't pay you. Will you take your company back?" And that happened on a Friday, and then Monday was my last day there.
Wow. What was that like for you and your family?
I guess you could say a whole lot of different emotions. It was disappointing, of course. As entrepreneurs, we all work hard to build a company, and selling a company is an exit that a lot of us plan for, if it can happen. And when it does, it's an extremely satisfying feeling. But when that unravels, it's equally disappointing.
For a lot of us, right, this is one of those things as entrepreneurs, right? There are ups and downs, and we get punched in the face, we get right back up, and we continue to do what we do. This is on the scale where some of us maybe don't get back up. Some of us are like, all right, that it's obviously not for me, or it's too devastating. Now I am going to go get that McDonald's job, right?
Right.
How long did it take you from that Friday or that Monday to kind of pick yourself back up and say, all right, this is the plan, this is what I'm going to do?
I guess one day.
One day? Okay.
I guess, I didn't have my choice. I don't know. I didn't want to waste time wallowing in it. I wanted to hustle and get things rebooted again if that was what I had to do. And I guess I made my decision and I went forward with it. But in other areas, I guess I'm still healing from the situation. But I choose to look at it in a positive light. In many respects, I have a lot of advantages today than I did a year ago. Number one being I have a smaller team, so I'm a little more agile than I was a year ago. I have an excellent team. So the reboot, when 2 months ago, I guess you could say I call it the reboot. That's when things didn't work out with that other company. So it was me and 3 others restarted Velocity WebWorks.
That's exciting. The reboot is still in effect, right? I mean, this is still early on in this kind of second phase of your career. What is different from the Velocity WebWorks of today than a year ago?
Several things. A year ago, when I had such a big company, I had a big beast to feed every month. Mm-hmm. I had to have so much business coming in to maintain salaries and staff for all those people. So in many respects, we would say yes to any possible project that would come in, and it would spread us thin. We'd take on the really tiny, small, graphic design projects all the way up to the big projects. But the reality is we don't make a lot of money. We're more break even on those smaller projects. Mm-hmm. So although we had a big staff and we had a lot going on, a lot of it was just spinning our wheels to maintain the status quo without really feeling like we're getting traction and move forward.
I'm sure that was frustrating and wasn't happy times all the time, right?
I get frustrating because of lack of forward progress, yes, but also grateful that we had work. We never had to experience laying off somebody because we didn't have enough work. There was always enough coming in. But now the difference is the work that I have coming in is the work that to us is profitable, enjoyable, and we get to be a little more choosy of what we want to do because I don't have that big beast to feed. I don't have a lot of overhead like I used to have.
Overall, what did you learn from this process?
Lots of things.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. As an employee, I learned that if my salary was capped, no matter how hard I worked, I didn't have as much control over my income as I would as an entrepreneur. And I learned that was important to me, that I have a little more control over my income. And I'm willing to take on risk to have control over my income. Other things I learned is the importance of scaling a business properly. Don't take on too much too quick, and grow things at a comfortable pace as possible. I kept in contact with some of my old contacts while I worked for that other company, and I'm grateful that I did because that helped with our reboot. So always keep in contact with friends and contacts. Those network connections are very important, and you never know when you'll need to draw on them. So I was grateful to have that too.
Right. It's a kind of a cautionary tale almost, right? What has happened in the last year or so. Good things have happened in your career. Bad things have happened in your career, right? Like most of us. Would you have changed anything? I mean, are you okay with where you are now that you would have gone through that process, or would you have maybe just stayed away? Because learning experiences are painful, right? And we were joking about being in our closets and crying all day long and stuff when bad things happen. But I don't know. Would you do it again to be where you are right now?
I don't know. Now that I know what I know now, of course I'd avoid the same path I took. But I am grateful for the lessons I learned. So in a way, I wouldn't do the same thing again. But if that was the only path to learn what I know now, then I guess I would choose that path.
And it sounds like you're in a good place, right? Mentally, business-wise, with the future and what kind of has in store for you. So right now, right, with everything you've learned, everything you've experienced, if you were to kind of pick one thing, what are you the best at right now? What are you personally the best at?
I feel like I have a talent at coming up with ideas and innovating. I have that rare gift of being technical and creative at the same time.
Which is difficult. You don't find that very often.
Which is rare.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm good at working with people, and I actually enjoy the customer service aspect of business. I love working with people and helping them get to that aha moment or resolving their concern or whatever that is. I think that's really satisfying. And you don't find that in a lot of tech people. They don't want to talk to humans.
Agreed.
I do.
Agreed. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And I feel like I can relate with technical people, on the other hand, really well. I can speak their language and work with them with what they need.
See, I think you have a
too.
huge advantage, right? Because you're able to do that. You're able to communicate with both groups where, like you said, there are a lot of talented people on both sides of it that can't do it, right? They can't communicate. They can't express what they're trying to do, or kind of, I don't know, lay it all out there in a way that's easy to understand if you're not part of that, that mindset. So, but you can do both, which is
Yep.
a huge advantage. So congratulations on that. Now, as we start to kind of wrap this down a little bit, you have a small team now. Tell us what all of this is going to look like in 3 years, though.
Oh, good. Right now, I'm focused on growing and developing my dev agency. So we build custom web-based applications, e-commerce sites that require a lot of custom programming. We build mobile apps, and I want to keep that going strong. My vision for the future is developing products of our own that we can sell and develop. When you have a dev agency like us, you kind of have a limit on how much you can grow, because there's only so many hours in a day, and you can only bill for so many hours. Your billable rate, there's only so much that the market can bear for what you can charge. But when you can develop a product that has more scale, you have a lot bigger future. And I believe I've got a talented enough team that we can develop some pretty amazing products and to scale.
And team wise, what's are you gonna, is the goal to get back to 30, 33 or so, or to keep it small and lean?
No, I want to keep it small. I love the small team, a lot more intimate.
Good. And you can do a lot of good things, with a small team that can move quick, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so with those that kind of are listening to this, this episode and hearing your story, and I think it's a combination of two things. It's a cautionary tale and an inspirational tale, right? Because you didn't stop; it knocked you down, but you're still kind of up there and going, and obviously the future is bright. But for those that maybe are first time entrepreneurs, what's one piece of advice that you would offer them to either keep them going, or to get started, or just to kind of get them to the next level?
The advice I would give is always be innovating, always be improving. I like that Japanese word kaizen. It means to continually improve. So no matter what circumstance you're in, always look for ways to continue to improve, whether it's improving a process, improving yourself, improving the way you run your business. I think that way, no matter what happens, you can look at it as a challenge to say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to improve. And that's another piece of advice I'd give anyone, is there is so much opportunity out there in the world. It's amazing how much opportunity there is. There is a ton of opportunity. There's an infinite number of ideas, infinite number of products that can be developed and marketed. There's a lot of opportunity. So open your eyes up, and look for that opportunity. You'll be surprised how much there is out there.
I love it. That's good stuff. Thank you for that. Now, for those that are listening, that they want to connect with you, where can we find you online?
My website is velocitywebworks.com, and I'll also share my LinkedIn and Twitter on the Outlier Magazine website.
Perfect. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review it. You'll be able to find other entrepreneurs to listen to and follow as well. But there we're going to have Dan's link to the website, social media accounts. You heard him on the show. He's obviously has a great story. He knows what he's doing. Again, the future is bright, so feel free to reach out to him and connect. Dan, hey, this has been really amazing, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and for telling us your story and just sharing your journey, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ever. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely, anytime. So Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Spend half of it in line, fighting myself not just how